We transition. We now the shit. All right. Well, good night. I'm kidding. Not good night. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's trash dump of a podcast once again.
Sound is good.
Yep. We all sound good. Loy, say something. Make sure audio.
Allow.
Okay. We'll see. Hopefully, I'll
Yep,
edit
it's
your
good.
audio to make sure it's louder. But you know what? This is perfect. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Hotter Trash Podcast. If you see one of us is missing, it's because yes, he is a bit running late. He's eating out with his family.
Oh,
So
the
don't
family time.
yeah, family time. We're just gonna keep it at that, all right? Anyways, moving on. So pretty much on purview for the last time we talked about this too. And this is also from a other commenter from one of my videos that truly, this is a shout out to them. Thank you for commenting. Helps us boost more stuff into the algorithm, gets me seen a lot more. Anyways, moving on from that, I'm also going to help out by also saying we'll also talk about this too, which is in this case some creative decisions that are very much questionable in Hollywood as of now. But we're going to be talking about it in the lens of movie critics because there's based on YouTube, you notice that there is a big disparity or dissonance between like what the critics are looking for versus what the average moviegoer is looking for.
Wait, before we begin, Brian, we haven't
Yes.
even introduced ourselves yet.
Fine
No,
then.
they knew.
Anyways,
Hi, I'm your permanent guest star, Michael.
yes.
I'm your not permanent guest star, Loy. Nibble
Well,
your ear.
okay, well, you didn't have to add that part. But anyways, asking in this case for you two as just a very broad question, do you think there are some cases where the critics' opinion and the general audience opinions line up?
Nom, 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 nom,
You
nom.
just mean kind of like they both agree, like correct?
Yeah,
I
they
just
both agree.
clarify.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, have I seen it recently? No. I feel like a lot of times I tend to see movies or shows that are like critically acclaimed, and then when you watch it, you're kind of like, what? This was what's supposed to be spectacular, and then you see like it doesn't turn out very well. Like
Mhm.
I'll give an example. Like Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Like I remember Rings of Power being kind of like held to a like being praised by critics, but then you had a lot of people who genuinely didn't like it, and a lot of the more vocal people who didn't like it were obviously like Tolkien fans.
Mhm.
Um, but I wouldn't call myself a Tolkien fan, but I do love the Lord of the Rings series, and I can
Yeah.
typically watch something even if it's on an IP that I like and kind of just
Right.
like watch it and be fine. But I just found it boring. Like I
Yeah.
just found it boring. I felt like I didn't really know a lot of characters. Their names just wouldn't stick with me because they were just kind of like bland characters. And I mean,
Mhm.
that was what was given praise. And then I mean that's one of my examples. Do you guys have any examples about that? Or well, I should go back. How about you, Loy? Do you think that viewers and critics agree with each other often?
In recent memory, not often. Not often at all. For one, I know average moviegoers they think differently of from critics. Let's just get that out of the way. That's the main difference.
Mhm.
People are so like the critics are doing it obviously for their jobs. And they're gonna be very nitpicky about certain stuff. They're gonna be nitpicky about like the CGI or the storytelling or just the maybe even the music choice. And maybe
Hmm.
the and on the flip side, the average audience viewer, they probably don't even care about all this, you know, nitpicky type of bullshit. They're
Yeah.
gonna watch, have a good time. If it makes them feel good, they get a laugh. Depending on the genre, it's like makes you like ponder on like what the story is about. Then
Hmm.
I think that's what they're looking for. and in recent memory, tying that back together, I don't think they agree too often because they have two different mindset watching the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
So
here, just real quick to hammer the point I made home,
yeah.
critics' review, this is from Rotten Tomatoes, was 83%, while audience score was 38%.
For which movie?
Not a movie, show, Rings of
Oh,
Power.
oh, Rings of Power. Gotcha. So, I'm glad that you actually brought up Rotten Tomatoes because let I'm gonna lay back a lot of context for what we mean by this. A lot of times with the critics that we've seen so far, they're based off of like Rotten Tomato critics, which based on a lot of news articles that have been like actually being released from few months back, we found out that Rotten Tomato doesn't actually hire like proper movie critics, but they just find people that have journalism degrees and they just said, you're now an officialized critic.
I mean,
So,
it kind of shows, let me be honest.
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
agree with that.
So, so if anything, if you agree with it or not, that is what is happening. And secondly, even in professional moviegoers, dude, they don't typically look at Rotten Tomato as like a legitimate site. If anything, it's more of a joke than anything.
Hmm.
So
And
it's
this
even
goes,
weirder. Yeah.
just to clarify to anyone as well, before like we get deep into it, no one is saying that you cannot enjoy something like a TV show, like Rings of Power, or a movie, or anything like that. Like you, if you like it, you like it.
Yeah.
But we're just going to be talking about the disparity between critics and audience reviews.
Right. And also, Victor finally joined us today. Yay!
Yeah.
Hey,
So,
Hey.
Oh,
so, if anything, now ask this question because you now just came in. Do you think movie critics and audience opinions do they tend to agree with each other more times than not?
I don't think so. I think movie critics are living in a world of their own.
Mm. So, if anything, it's actually really funny you do mention that too, because based on what I'm trying to do a little bit of research into this, critics, I'll say back like 20 or 30 years ago, they were working in a very much different like set of environments of how they were publishing media. So let's not even go through the 90s. Let's go back through the 70s and 80s, such as like how would in this case a lot of like bigger films, and not even during those times too. We'll even go back to like I would say like the first film to be released was somewhere between like 1890 or some shit like that. Where
Going that far back.
yeah, in this case, where the
Real
first
far
like black
back.
yeah, where in this case the first black and white films
Yeah, we're
were
talking about
ever
Charlie
shown.
Chaplin level things now.
Yeah. But this brings up a very interesting point too, because like movie critics have always been a part of, in this case, the movie industry. And even back then, movies weren't really seen as like a form of art from that notion, just because everybody was looking at it as just entertainment, right? Which is perfectly fine. A lot of movie critics during the time too, they also wanted to like put in some insights to people about like how, in this case, they were trying to push for in this case that movies itself cannot just be like its own just straight up for pure entertainment, even though it still can be. But I think they think that they could push the narrative or they could push the envelope forward on in this case we can improve in this case better storytelling overall. And this was also during a time as well where after a certain amount of years, I'll say post World War II, the world gets slowly introduced of like other cinemas, like European cinemas, for example. And they were very much like throwing things out in the West field of like all new concepts and all new type of storytelling that a lot of general audiences haven't seen before. And a lot of times critics actually like were very important, which they would understand and they would watch like these foreign movies and they will help explain it to other moviegoers of what they're going into. That was actually a very good primary job of a critic, right? Just because in a general audience like us in the US, we have no idea why like certain things are being shown to us in like let's say a French movie, for example, because culturally speaking, they see things and they would write stories differently from us. And that's the part of a critic that's supposed to help interpret that and probably help us digest it and probably put ourselves in the shoes of the producers or directors for those said films. Now, during those times, it was a lot easier because a lot of times people got their information through like newspapers, magazines, articles, and whatnot too. And then the internet came in, right? And that was like a whole other stuff that's like a pioneer for uh like self-establishing critic and create article block sites to help like explain a lot of like old movies that a lot of people should like really watch if they really enjoy movies, right?
Mm.
And so then it comes to the problem of based on the fact that movies overall have gotten better over time. Let's just say this. I'm going to just state it like this. The 90s were a great turning point for when movies became higher in quality, but that's also because that was the time where CGIs became very much apparent or started being utilized heavily. In this case, I'm looking at Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, a lot of other films as well that pushed it. A lot of James Cameron movies were actually trying to push the envelope of fuck ton of CGI. And it was something
turned out great.
Yeah, turned out great. And it's like it even gave like more things for like movie critics to really emphasize like how important these films are in the sense that they in this case are highlighting advancing technology in the movie space. And this is something that a lot of audience members they will definitely appreciate and they will definitely be at all at, especially in this case the hit phenomena of Star Wars. Star Wars itself was the first movie that we stated earlier that made blockbusters such an important, or opening weekends, such an important thing to look for Hollywood industry. So, so there's a lot of things right now that along with the growth of movie industries, the movie critics went along with it just because of the fact that they still had a place. But until a certain point here, they become a little bit questionable right now. At least in my opinion, they're a lot more questionable. At least here's the hotter trash take. Rotten Tomatoes, do not use this site if you actually want a good movie critic or a movie review. Don't go there.
I would argue to the extreme that I don't know a good critic.
No.
I haven't heard a good critic.
No.
This extends beyond like
Mhm.
movie media. Like I don't
No.
know. I just haven't seen a good critic.
Yeah. So this is going to be where a lot of interesting things can be at play here, right? Because a lot of times too, a lot of like good movie critics right now too, at this point in time, are just straight up making YouTube channels. Like straight up. They just have YouTube channels that in a lot of case of purposes too, this is probably like the best way to actually like give you a better movie review, such as a lot of movie essays or video essays that come out too, ranging from all types of topics. That's how we come up with a lot of our research topics here. Or that's how we come up with a lot of our topics here. I just literally sit down and watch like a fuck ton of video essays. Holy fucking shit. These guys are very much detail oriented when it comes to movies. Like, holy shit. I'll give you a really good example too. So let's say in this case, for everyone's group here, I don't know. I'm sorry about you, Michael, if you will feel left out by this, but I'll try my best to keep you in. Look in this case for everybody, look for a channel called Ascended Cinema or Cinema, where he does a lot of coverage on, in this case, Chinese Hollywood or Chinese film media of how much it has progressed over the years, and also like kind of detailing back on like the nitty gritty and a lot of background stuff that was happening, how a lot of these films became successful here in the West, and what things did the West take from like Hong Kong cinema that they then started interpreting or started implementing in their own production. Like there's a bunch of like channels like Ascended Cinema, or Every Frame is a Painting one. He's no longer making videos, unfortunately, because this was mostly a college like prep course or a college course that he was doing that he was just making videos. His videos are top quality, but I'm sad that he doesn't make more videos. I mean, it's just because they were really good. So you have people like that. Chris Stuckman is another good movie reviewer, and he's mostly specializes in like talking about comic book movies to even like the action oriented or sometimes even the horror movies aspect as well. But he does everything in terms of relatively pop culture stuff. If you're looking for stuff that is like maybe not part of the usual norm of like what's a popular film right now, there are many channels out there that exist. I think that's the current trend that I see right now with a lot of these movie critics is the fact that they're not really like making blog sites or they're not really like part of like the publishing agencies where they're forcing a lot of these movie critics that they know a lot in one field, but they expect them to make a piece about all of the upcoming movies that they are aware of. Like, for example, here, you take a movie critic that specializes in knowing, in this case, like French cinema, which has a very like artsy and a lot more drier dialogue that he can like actually understand and make like a really good paper to help explain out a lot of these things for like an American reader. But unfortunately, his boss tells us, "Nah, you gotta watch all the Avengers and you gotta give me everything that you know about this to your best contention and just publish it the next day." It's like, ah, shit. I was like, I haven't read a comic book since the 70s.
Feels kind of
Like,
redundant to even do that.
you, yeah, it's just like, don't you have someone else to do it for us? Like, what are you having the other guy do? Like, it's like a lot of things that a lot of movie critics are in this case. If you think about the way how it's being written, it feels like they were honestly just publishing it just to publish it. And
I
it's like,
wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, it's like I wouldn't be surprised too, but I don't honestly hold it against them either because this goes to say too that like a lot of people will do stuff that they don't want to do as part of their job or they don't want to do because it's not something that they're like in this case passionate about, but unfortunately it's part of the job that you work for. It may not be the best, but it is what it is. And I
It's a
think that's
job
why
that entails.
and I think that's why right now too, like a lot of like these critics, dude, they're kind of stuck right now as yeah, they're just pretty much stuck right now because like they they weren't able to like transition themselves like early enough where they would have like YouTube channels where they actually can like popularize or not even popularize. Ah, fuck. I'm the words are escaping my mouth right now. Shit.
I'm skipping your mouth.
Shut up. Anyways, they weren't there to exploit, in this case, the early viewership that they could have gotten if they would, in this case, learn how to create a channel to learn how to make videos. But obviously, not everybody can do that. And it's just unfortunate that is the case now, right? Where for those movie critics, they are legitimately stuck on where they're at because a lot of times the movie critics itself, like the art form of critiquing, that's also a thing. Critiquing a movie actually becomes its own art form when you in this case have to think about like how do you word this in a way that one you show in this case the appreciation of the film while at the same time giving constructive criticism but still make it so that the viewer or the reader that's going through your article piece is willing to still watch it in the end, supporting it, and they shouldn't be the one to say like the higher judgment like you shouldn't watch this movie because it's bad. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's going to be you yourself know better on what you like and don't like in films. That is the end all objective truth about all this. Movie critics
Understand.
are only just a suggestion.
Mhm. I've actually also been sitting here. So uh the new Godzilla movie is The New Empire, right?
Yes.
I looked and I saw that the Rotten Tomatoes for it. Let me scroll back a bit because I was actually reading some of the critics' reviews. The critics rated it 54%, while audience did 91. And
Mhm.
I started reading a little bit of the reviews, and I'm starting to see the true dissonance.
Mhm.
So when you think of Godzilla versus Kong, what comes to mind?
Big fucking monsters beating each other up.
Mm-hmm.
Big ape,
Good.
big dragon, big
Yes.
dinosaur.
That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Brian?
I mean, yeah, that is exactly what I see it as, especially if I know the Godzilla X Kong is being produced by Legendary Studios.
Mm-hmm. but you only expect it just to be like a kaiju fight. Like really,
Yeah.
you just expect it to be big dumb kaiju fight. Nothing's really going to make sense. It's just for action.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So some of the critics like not to like poop on them or anything.
Poop on
Not
'em.
all of them.
Yeah.
They
Poop on
do.
it.
on 'em.
Some of them are aware of this. Like, listen, sometimes you just got to turn your brain off and just go and enjoy some ridiculousness. Well, that's what
Mhm.
one of them said. One said it's like I saw it a second ago, but it's essentially he was just saying that hey, it's a great just fighting big kaiju dumb fighting movie. Like it's
Yeah.
good. And then you start to see the rest of the critics, and they're kind of like the script there is a plot, but it's preposterous tosh, and it makes no sense, and it doesn't even try to make sense. Stuff, roar. And I'm kind of like, pretentious as hell. I see. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Stuff, roar. I
like,
like that.
and they're all kind of along that same like thing. They're like empty film, no story. All it is fighting, nothing more, nothing. There's no story. Fight, blah blah blah. And you're like, yes, that is what a Godzilla versus Kong movie is. And
Now.
I think that's the
Hmm.
one of the big dissonance is that like at the end of the day, a movie critic, whether you take their criticism correct, like whether you think they're even like we're all qualified to be critics, okay? But whether
Yeah.
you take what they're saying seriously because they have like a writing degree or like a critic's degree, whatever,
Yeah.
like a,
Or
like if whatever you take it at the end of the day, like they're critics, so they're going to be judging it extraordinarily harsh. And I
yeah.
feel sometimes, a lot of the times, they miss the point. They
Hmm.
miss the point of things. Like not
Absolutely.
every film that's coming out is supposed to be before they ruined it. Game of Thrones tier level complexity or Lord of the Rings tier complexity and world crafting. Sometimes people don't want to have to like put their brains on ultra or overdrive and consistently just absorb like worlds of information. Sometimes people just want to sit down and fight, like watch a
Yeah.
fight. And I
Turn
think
a-
this
bro.
is a perfect example of like the Godzilla versus Kong. I think it's a perfect example of that dissonance because 54% for critics review versus 91% on audience review. I mean, like,
Now.
all I hear is it's a good movie, while critics are saying it's not that great. And it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going for big dumb fun, yes. If you're going for like a deep story, you're probably not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dissonance, really, is
Yeah. And the other problem that I have with a lot of like current modern critics, dude, this could also be like it could play into my original argument that like these critics don't really like were not part of in this case the monster or the kaiju verse movie franchise that's been going on since the 70s. Like they probably weren't like seeing like what Godzilla X Kong is supposed to be about. It's supposed to pay homage to like the original Toei or the old Godzilla films, especially where you
Mhm.
have one clip of Godzilla where he is sliding on his tail doing the most meanest dropkick world kind has ever seen.
Dude, I fucking love that scene, and this is why I love Godzilla. Just for that fucking fact, every time I see it, I can't help but laugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
most ridiculous shit ever.
Now, and here's the other thing that I will at least cut them some slack to, where, well, not really cut them some slack on this one. This will be in one ways that they try to make this argument, such as it's not in this case. Interestingly, the effects in the films aren't as good as the ones in the low budget Godzilla -1. The monsters look a bit halting while in doubt. Wingard and company turn up the light. Oh, wait, I don't even know what the last sentence was. Anyways, here's the problem with the statement that you're trying to compare Godzilla X Kong with Godzilla -1. While at the same time, yes, visually speaking, Godzilla -1 looks way better, but you have to consider the idea of, in this case, what does CGI do to the story? What do you want the CGI to do for the story? For Godzilla -1, it was this case a much more of a cautionary tale for like humanity about like the actions that they do will cause in this case nature to wreak havoc in the world Like in this case, it's a more
Oh,
environmentalist point of view. Godzilla X Kong is in this case another mindset of Godzilla that has always existed as well, where they portray Godzilla as as a benevolent protector. Is it benevolent or malevolent? Benevolent, right?
Is he
benevolent.
good?
If you're saying he's
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
then yes, benevolent.
yeah. He's always been seen as a benevolent protector of Earth. And so the question being is that like, so in this case, what about the CGI? I'm not saying that in this case too. I still think Godzilla minus one CGI looks way better than Godzilla X Kong. But the thing with Godzilla X Kong is that I still think that in this case, the CGI fits perfectly on what it's trying to accomplish here. There's like a
Mhm.
big difference on that. I could tell in some ways too, Godzilla kind of looks a bit funky in certain scenes, or some of the action sequences did look a bit weird. Maybe it's also because of the lighting, I'm gonna be honest. But regardless, I'm looking at this and I'm treating both films separately. That is the current thing here. You cannot compare movies with another movie. That is not a way to create good criticism.
Well, I feel you can
Like,
compare movies of a
you
same
can.
genre, but like I think Godzilla minus one and Godzilla versus Kong, while they have the same, while they still like take place around Godzilla, they're different. They're meant to give a different feeling.
Yeah. So, and also for those too, if you want a really good, like fucked up version of Godzilla, watch Shin Godzilla. That shit is terrifying. Anyways, but moving on from that, I do see in this case, I think Godzilla X Kong in the way how like you see the movie reviews and the audience score, they're very much different. And it's just honestly interesting the more you look at this one and then you see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, where it is 43%, but the audience score likes it at an 83%. This is like a very much a very weird scenario here. Such as the fact that people genuinely love the new Ghostbusters that's been coming out. That's not in this case the previous reboot that we saw earlier, where they just replaced the entire cast with females and replaced the gender of everybody essentially. So we're gonna ignore that shit. People liked in this case Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Future or Frozen Empire. I was about to say Future Past. My bad. That's X-Men shit. But
Like you correct.
so the thing about it too is that like the film itself, yes, it doesn't really do much to really like push like anything new in the Ghostbusters series. But I think that's okay anyways if the intention of this film was so that it pays homage to the original Ghostbusters itself. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with movies or films that want to do that. And I feel like you should at least start critiquing things that are based off of that, like if the director wanted it to be that way, because it also feels like as well too that the critic doesn't really understand what the vision that the um or the vision that the directors are going for specific movies.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are in this case rare occasions where movie critics and also movie watchers, their opinions do line up, and that is Dune Part 2. And apparently it is currently out right now for streaming platforms. And at some point, I'll get everybody here and we'll watch it. We need to still watch Dune Part 1.
We'll
All
watch them
together.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch them both.
Yeah. So
How about? Kidding.
there's that. And there's
How about
also
what?
Monk. Well,
Nothing.
oh my
That's
God.
what I thought.
So,
Should have beat.
so the thing with in this case for Dune Part 2, it doesn't matter how you look at it too. Like a average movie critic cannot actually like denounce like anything about this. Like the movie is objectively good all the way around because of the fact that the Dune series has been out for such a long time. Hell, George Lucas based a literal planet based off of the book. So if that doesn't tell you like how influential Dune was to a lot of like current sci-fi movies or calls sci-fi media itself too, Dune is in this case does get the deserve that it wants to. However, I cannot say that it's the next Lord of the Rings. Whoever said that, no, stop
Bro,
that.
I didn't even know Dune existed until this year.
Mhm.
No. Yeah. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of people knew about it and they just watched the films the first time and they are like weirded out on the weirdest shit that you've seen that the
Yeah,
movie does in terms of sci-fi.
I also feel like in Star Wars, the
Hmm.
good and bad are very kind of like defined.
Yeah,
But
the
the
good.
whole thing about Dune is that it's nothing but gray. Like there are
Yeah.
definitely bad, and they're definitely well, I couldn't even say there's good, but there's definitely bad, and then there's definitely gray. I don't know too much good. Like that's the whole point of it.
Like there's bad and then there's worse. Those are
Yeah,
your two options.
like they're both like fantastical, but like
Mhm.
they're it's kind of like comparing Star Wars with Game of Thrones a bit.
Yeah. So, if anything, for those that do love the Game of Thrones, like the whole political intrigue and a lot of like interpersonal drama that occurs too, watch Dune. It's a great movie and
Yeah,
also a
the
great
first
novel.
I haven't read the novel and I kind of want to. Well, I
Mhm.
don't kind of. I want to.
You want me to lend you a book that I have?
Oh yeah, sure. You have the first one in the series.
Hmm.
Nice. Yeah, I would totally. I was looking at it down at the bookstore, but to keep on track, um, I I think the beginning of Dune sets up the world very well,
Yeah.
and I won't. I mean, I know it's older, but it is such a good setup that like if you look and read between the lines and how people are saying things and like the way that things are happening, you get to a lot of what's going on in the world and
Yeah.
what's going on with the House of Atreides
Yeah.
almost immediately.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna lie, I didn't catch it the first time myself, but on the second watch, I definitely started to notice things. So
Yeah.
like I think it's a very good film, and I would recommend watching it.
Yeah. So in this case, while in this case this was a slight bit tangent, this will bring back into another point that I want to bring it back to movie critics now too. At this point
Mhm.
in day and age, as soon as Doom Part 2 came out, we've come into this realm right now where there is in this case a rise of the quote unquote influencer critics. So for those that don't know, like if they want an example of what I'm talking about, think of in this case a pronounced like straw hat goofy. Yeah, straw hat goofy, a renowned in this case like person that's on TikTok, and he does like a really good movie reviews on mostly pop culture and anime stuff. He's really good on that. And so there's a lot more people that have made like really good reviews, but it's also because of the fact that I don't know, I don't really like the way how TikTok kind of forms itself. Like you're gonna give like a short ass review about like how great this movie is, but it's also the most general. It sounds like you're glazing the movie more than you are trying to critique it. Now, for
Glaze it.
most people, glazing meaning that they're just like, it's another term that I've learned too, and it's essentially like you giving it praise like nonstop kind of shit. Now, I'm not claiming that Straw Hat Goofy does a lot of glazing, but a lot of other uh, influencer critics. I don't know what the better way to call them. I'll just call them TikTok critics. That makes it easier. Comes off the mouth better. So all the other TikTok critics, a lot of them don't really come off as the fact that they're giving like genuine like criticism of like what makes this movie good versus like, oh, this movie is great. Go watch it in theaters right now because it has badass action scenes. And it's like you're just only saying stuff that you hear in a marketing.
I mean, the whole point of TikTok is to get clicks, right? Get
Yeah.
views.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's to get clicks, to get views, and it's like it works, but it's also sort of less like I don't know. Maybe in some ways too, I could also see the frustration of how a lot of movie critics is because I've seen and I've read a couple of things that they've posted about like TikTok critics is the fact that they are like it's not that in this case they don't appreciate them like being a part of this, but in this case the quality content or the quality of their content is kind of muddying in this case what actual critiquing is supposed to be or like what movie critics are supposed to be. But then you get
Yeah.
into the question of like, where do they belong in this day and age of like social media? And you're just posting things at rapid speeds, even faster than ever, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So, genuinely speaking, right now, because obviously we can't really look at Rotten Tomato as like a really good way to like to be a litmus test if a movie is good or bad. You can only look at it as like, what are people saying about it, kind of deal. But at the same time, don't even take it like everything they say as like factual at all.
Of course not. I mean, when you're reviewing a movie, it's their own opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like at the end of the day, too, that's movie critics are still in the end like they have to be up for with the fact that this is mostly still an opinion that they have about it based off the knowledge and the context that they are aware of as the movie was created. So, in this case, for you guys, what in this case would you say right now at these coming times, do you still think that movie critics still have a place in modern cinema or in like modern media now?
I think so. I mean, anybody that gives their opinions on anything is useful.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say that like most opinions, I mean, are valid. Like they're like at the end of the day, like an audience member can be looking at the exact same thing that critics are looking at, and a critic can be looking at the exact same. Like what I mean by that is like the media. Like we know that I'll use Godzilla versus Kong. A critic can be looking at it and think, oh, it's supposed to be this kind of movie, and then be good. Or you can have the critic who doesn't, and then you can have an audience member who looks at the movie and knows it's supposed to be some dumb action. Or you can have an audience member who doesn't. I think in reality, like I don't necessarily. There isn't much, in my opinion, that really defines a line between a critic and just an audience member,
Mhm.
because like I don't know. Like I guess the idea is that critics are supposed to be more like knowledgeable about specific something. But if anything, so far, all I ever see is that like they're just an audience viewer that's being called a critic.
Yeah.
Mm,
In my
And
opinion, do I think
it's
they
okay.
have a place? Let me answer the question. I guess
Mm-hmm.
yes, but within their own subject domain. I don't think they're like if they're like a really well-known French movie critic, I would more expect them to be more valid opinions or like know their French movies, not like their Godzilla movies. Like I'm not expecting when I see a French movie critic who obviously critiques French movies, I wouldn't expect his opinion on Kong of Godzilla versus Kong to be worthwhile, if that makes sense.
yeah, it's like if anything, like if you knew in this case the type of critic that they are, you would at least like weigh their opinions differently versus like another
Exactly.
one
Like,
that's like watched Godzilla since he was like 5 years old.
yeah, if there was someone who was like there was a movie critic who was all about dumb, fun kaiju action, and he said Godzilla versus Kong was horrible, I would start to think maybe it's not that, maybe it's not a good movie, you
Mhm.
know, like
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
that's what his specialty in critiques are, then I would take it with a higher validity, but
Mhm.
in the end, I don't know these critics' background. Like I don't know what their speciality is, or if they're just being called a critic because they have a degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sure, you could be called a critic, I guess, because you have a degree, but most degrees have specializations. What is yours? Because if it's not dumb kaiju fights and you're telling me that Godzilla vs Kong is horrible, I'm not gonna take it as a like. I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And this again goes to in this case a lot of times where a lot of film critics are in this case like critiquing in this case the a lot of Hong Kong cinema, for example. And guess what? Not a lot of them have witnessed Hong Kong cinema until like in the late 80s or 90s.
Hmm.
So imagine like
It's
they were critiquing movies way before then too, and then they now see this. They're not gonna really have like the context or the nuances of understanding of like what this film is. But obviously,
mhm.
if they know filming enough too, they would do the research that they can, and then they could build up to that. So it's like it's a lot of things that even if you don't know what to, as long as you build up in this case that you are familiar, you did the research on like the type of genre that you're about to critique a movie in, then I still think that you at least made like a reasonable like movie critic or movie post about it. But a lot of that seems to be lost now since half the time too there's so much like stuff or a lot of movies. I'm not gonna lie, trying to be a movie critic and try to critique like every movie that comes out, it sounds like a daunting task.
Yeah, absolutely. But I
Like
mean, I kind of assume that's their full-time job, right?
yeah, it's like that would be like their full-time job is to like find out and like do all this stuff. Now, I'm not saying that it's hard either, but at the same time, the amount of content that you have to actually like really try to put like your best piece into, it's going to be difficult. And obviously, you try to
Yeah.
alleviate or divvy up your task with amongst your peers. But even then, just the sheer amount of movies that are coming out are extraneous too. Hell, you now even have in this case the rise of Bollywood that's coming into the West now. That's like its own separate thing that they're just like, oh fuck. Now,
Man.
like I won't at least like defend it saying that like we should be easy on the movie critics. There's still in this case a type of quality that they themselves need to uphold, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
obviously, it's a lot more different now with the fact that the digital age has made things like either more redundant than it is, and is also giving everybody a platform or a voice to speak. In this case, their quote unquote uh, review or critic about a movie, critique about a movie. I'll even state too that fuck me, I hate it when this happens. Such as the fact that I don't think that like there are some people that should be like critiquing or in this case recommending movies. Especially when someone says that Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings is the greatest Asian American film that's ever touched in
Yeah,
this
they
year. I'm like,
cannot talk about movies. So
it's like,
I disagree wholeheartedly.
I I am so livid when I heard that from a friend's cousin. I'm like,
Action scenes, amazing. We'll get that out of the way. Action scenes, amazing. That fucking story, like the story building and the world building, god awful.
oh, God. Now, if you really want a really good Asian American representation, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a batshit bonkers movies that obviously it's meant to be there to obviously distract you from like all the actual core stuff that even if it doesn't distract you at all, you actually watch the movie for what it is. It's a really good story.
Obviously.
Oh yeah, dude. But it's a mind fuck. You just have to get
Yeah.
past that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me gain superpowers by putting this butt plug up my ass.
Oh yeah, let me cut like fucking get a piece of paper and give like and cut myself. Then I transform into like this super badass kung fu expert. Like what the fuck? I know
I
why
have
that
no idea what you
happens.
guys are talking about.
No, exactly.
Like I'm gonna be honest with you, anyone that's like trying to genuinely try to describe what the movie is, they're gonna look at that person describing it as in batshit insane, no matter what. It can't be helped. This is like the most hardest thing to recommend this movie to people is to make sure that you're not crazy.
Dude, if we were to compare fucking Doctor Strange multiverse story to this, like everything all at once multiverse story, everything all at once takes a fucking cake. They explain it so much better and it's so much and more engaging.
Like if you
Sorry,
guys want to
MCU has been
yeah.
going down.
Yeah. If you want a proper review about this too, there was like even a Genius Brain podcast that even talked about the movies extensively on that. So go give them a follow if you want to like a better review versus what we're doing here, because we're only using it as an example at this point. So to bring it back over to this case, movie critics right now, they obviously need to evolve with the technology that's people are using right now, right? That's made obvious. And I think the better way to honestly do that is through doing like YouTube channels. But obviously, now in this, you're just trying to battle the algorithm at this point. God, that is so hard to do.
I feel that.
But but if anything, if the person that's a movie critic knows how to work through social media, they can definitely get themselves out there. However, it requires work nonetheless.
I'm sure everything requires work.
Yeah. Everything still requires work, but at least the thing about it is critiquing movies is an art form that it is definitely not going to die anytime soon. So as long as there are people out there stating bullshit opinions, such as the
Absolutely.
such as the fact that no, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings is not a good Asian American film. Take that out of your mouth.
Whoever says the Eternals was a great film, they can reevaluate their fucking
Life
movie taste.
decisions. And here's a form. Here's a form to the nearest psych ward.
Oh yeah, because the Eternals got bad awful. Like, where the fuck did this sex scene come from, dude? That just caught me off guard. I'm like, what the fuck? MCU is doing this now? Like,
Yeah, I
what
was about
the
to
fuck?
say I have never heard of a sex scene in an MCU.
No, like
I mean,
they're-
like in the more recent ones. I mean, or not recent ones.
it's on sand.
On sand.
I believe I recall it was on sand and like in fucking valley or something. Some
Yeah.
canyon.
Anyways,
Moving on from that. Now, it gets even more interesting right now too with like how we're going about this is that movie critics right now, despite the age and era that they're in, a lot of like Asian media becomes like getting higher praises and the better reviews versus the Western counterpart. Let's say, for example, Parasite, the Korean film. Recipes the main actor that offed himself, honestly. For those that don't know who I'm on, I forgot the name of him already. Shit, I feel so bad now.
Oh
I
my
should not have
goodness.
mentioned. I'm sorry, but I
think
know
it was
he.
just irrelevant information. Let's just move on with the movie.
Yeah, yeah, my bad. So in this case, we have movies like Parasite, Squid Games, and even multitude of other Korean films. Train to Busan. Holy fuck, we thought we were actually done with like zombie films in the West here too. No, Train to Busan made like a fucking amazing character story, better than The Walking Dead. That was how good that movie was compared to the TV show that people were saying that this had very good character story.
Let me explain.
So in this case, for those that haven't watched the Train to Busan, it features in this case the main protagonist here, which is the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, who in this case were the reasons why the zombie outbreak occurred in Korea. And in doing so, him and like a couple of other casts are like stuck in a train that's heading to Busan because it's the last known safe place that everybody is holed up in to fight off against the zombie infection. It ends up showing like heroic tales of like self-sacrifices and Don Lee, my favorite Korean actor, no matter what. He's big dude and he's the one acting as Gilgamesh. He was so underutilized in that movie for the Eternals anyways. Don Lee was probably the best thing of the film too, showing in this case the macho-ness and the heroism that a lot of people love to see. And in this case, him when he made that self-sacrifice to save his pregnant wife and the rest of the group was the most heart-wrenching shit I've ever seen. And obviously it moved the main character because his whole motivation was just to survive, no matter what. And until he saw that too, he started to actually care for about his daughter, where he was sort of less like he did want to show that he cared for his daughter, but at the same time, his approach to it was like practically made himself distant from his own family members. Just because in this case the role of being a CEO or literally the head honcho for running this pharmaceutical company you are now solely responsible of causing. And so at the very end too, it was in this case the pregnant wife and the CEO's daughter that made it out alive. In this case, they both lived due to the fact that the other cast, the main CEO, sacrificed himself to save his daughter because he himself was turning. And that was like one of the things that, as the last effort of trying to do good, was also the most saddest way that he wanted to do good by. Like, holy fuck. Like I said, I think Asian cinemas have like a very not a grounded approach, but they're very direct with you that they will tell you a great story. And that is it. That's why you have shows like Shogun, for example, that have also been doing really well. Despite how some critics say that there's not enough black people in that show. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why?
That's a different topic. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, I think we talked about it already at some
I
point.
don't
So
want to further discuss it.
yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, we can all, and a lot of critics and a lot of other show watchers too, they all unanimously agree that Shogun is a great show. Just because a lot of storytelling, a lot of character drama stories have been like really interesting and very engaging, which is something that I do feel like is happening right now with a lot of like Western cinemas. Is the fact that we also don't mind if the story is basic and simple, but half the time too, there are some times where a lot of storytelling feels very much like in your face, or it's say straight up feels like it's making fun of you in some ways.
Mm.
Now, I can't really list out all the films at the top of my head right now, just because would need to curate a list of all the things that I have said earlier, and this will have to be its own topic about how a lot of movie studios right now they do not actually respect the movie watchers, even if it was intentional or not. But that is said, that being said too, movie critics will still have a place in the fact that we have emerging like film or entertainment studios that are coming up that are becoming more popularized. Anime, for example. Hey guys, Spy X Family Code White also got released here in the West as well.
Yeah, dude.
And that's already been receiving high reviews. Like, to see that in this case, I think right now the critics already do see that like anime will become like the next like big like media genre that will definitely cause a lot of attention.
It is already pretty big right now.
Yeah, it's already been pretty big, and it's something that like we've already known that this was kind of coming. It's just nowadays too that like a lot of people were trying to downplay the fact that it's just fucking cartoons, but in reality, it's like you can't just state that it's cartoons when you see every age group, every demographic loves it. What
Yeah.
does that state then?
I mean, you used to be made fun of if you fucking revealed that you watch anime back in the day.
Yeah,
True.
unless you say you like
Nowadays,
Dragon Ball.
I mean, I think Dragon Ball was like one of those things that everybody like bonded over. Like
Yeah,
literally every ethnicity at my school, like all my friends, they were different ethnicities, and they all knew Dragon Ball. That's how big that shit was. Besides any other anime, I don't know. I
yeah.
think you just get made fun of. But nowadays, it's okay. You can watch anime like in your classroom or at work, and you just spark up a conversation.
Yeah, it's like I didn't need their approval anyways. Let me watch my fucking shitty isekai anime, especially the one where I get reincarnated as a vending machine. God.
Yeah, so
But
stupid. It's
but
so
in this case too, having what I said there too, do you guys agree or disagree for based on everything I said at this point? Monologue over now.
well. Could you remind us what you were trying to make?
Oh
Yeah,
motherfucker.
bro. It went on a massive tangent on there talking about
Yeah.
animes and stuff.
Alright. So beforehand, I still say that like movie critics still will have a place, especially when we have emerging markets from
Oh
other
my
corners
gosh.
of the world coming in.
That's what you were referring to. My
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, we haven't touched on that in like
You
10
should.
minutes now.
My bad. Yeah, that's why I said monologue over. And that my bad on that. So I will reiterate there too. So what do you guys think then?
Do I think they still have a place?
Especially
Yes,
with emerging
if
markets.
if they're if they're critiquing within their speciality.
Or if they
Full
do
stop.
the research. Or do you think it has to be like they had to have known this shit before all this?
I don't think you need to know it. You just need to not throw out random bullshit. Just be well informed, do your research, then make an opinion based off that research. That's what I think. If they don't have anything
Uh,
to do with
I
it.
I I feel like the topic of do your research and things like that. It kind of feels weird because it defeats. It feels like it defeats the purpose of what a critic is because it's giving their opinion, and usually that opinion is formed by. In this case, it would be formed by constant watching and analyzing from themselves. Um, films of a particular kind.
Mm.
And it would feel weird for a movie critic to give an opinion based on research that he did. So it's kind of like, oh, I know this is supposed to be a dumb fighting movie, but I didn't like it because, and things like that. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel real. If I don't know, there's this weird. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know if that's just me, or if anyone else kind of feels along the similar lines to it.
Yeah, it's like in some ways too, like if at the end of the day too, you require like in this case the audience to do their own research to form their own opinions about this, then it's like what's the point of a movie critic? Because right now that's perfectly fine then too. But by the moment that you do this as well, you yourself have entered the territory of now in this case you're gonna be developing your own critique about this movie. Because if you're just a regular moviegoer watcher too, you wouldn't really do that extent
Mm-hmm.
in the first place. You would just go in, watch it based off of like what other people have said good praises about the movie, or what they said that was good about the movie that you're paying attention for. Because
Like,
at
does
the end of
anyone
the day,
else have that? Like, well, before we continue to move on, I wanted to know from Lawyer Victor if they share that kind of idea or elaborating thoughts on that.
Honestly, dude, I think that these movie critics, yes, like to answer Brian's question real quick, yes, they do have a place. But I see them as more of like what we've been talking about. They're just people giving their opinions about a certain movie. I don't believe they need to do research. I don't believe they need to be specialized in a certain movie. I think as long as they give their opinions, other people who watches their review or listens to them should be able to formulate their own conclusions and see if it's good or not for them.
yeah. And
Okay, I
Naveen,
kind of see this as a way as like an Amazon review. When you
yeah,
read when you read products on Amazon, you go to their reviews and you see what everybody like says about it. If you think it's good for you, you buy it, right? I kind of have the same thought process with that
In
right now.
in a way, couldn't we wrap that in with food as well? Like Yelp reviews. Like some people might, they think they don't review the food at all, but then you look at the food reviews and some like they overhype it. Oh, this is like the most amazing thing, but then you go eat it, then
and it's
Yeah,
just
they
okay.
claim it. Yeah.
if I was gonna say, like, I feel like I'm the one. I've also am the person who will look at food review, like people who are like leaving these reviews on like food, like Yelp and things like that, and they're like god tier things, and then you're like, oh, this has to hit. It has to be real good, and you go and try it, and you're like, wow,
It's
I
just like
could.
ass.
Yeah,
This is
they're
just
mediocre as
average.
fuck. Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
average. This isn't sent by God. This was made by. What is this?
In a way, it's similar, like to like movie critics. And kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
we
But
basically
Yeah.
yeah,
copy
but
them.
in the end, I just really do believe that we can still take everybody's opinions and every movie critic's reviews, but we have to form our own conclusion.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. At the end of the day, we do have to form our own conclusion. I just also believe when it comes to a critic, like the difference between an audience member leaving a comment and a critic leaving a comment is you would imagine, you would hope that the critic would know finer details about that genre or finer details about the story and could give you an opinion based on that versus an audience member who may or may not be at like the same level of a critic or what we imagine a critic should be at leaving an opinion. Like we tend to believe critics should have some kind of like heavier, like their opinion should have more weight. And that's why I tend to say that like I think critics still have a place if the if they are if they are like specialized within that particular genre or that particular movie kind, like I feel like that's where their true weight comes in from, not because they're a critic but because, well, what I mean is more like because their specialization is within like that particular genre. I would hold their opinion to higher value or higher standard than I would your basic audience, or like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I say kind of like the difference between them isn't just like, no, it's not like for you, Victor. It's like, it's not like their opinion. It's just their opinion. They don't need to be like well versed in the genre. I do think as a critic who is leaving a review, they should be well versed in that topic or that genre. That's what should be differentiating them from an audience member and being a critic.
But don't you think that could be, well, not really a bad thing, but they could give opinions that are so nuanced about certain aspects of the movie that they give it a bad review?
Yeah, 100%. But, and I do still agree with you in the very end that you should still formulate your own opinion. But I'm just saying that when you look at a movie critic, you're hoping that like they know what they're talking about, or that they have some insight that can help you formulate that opinion.
I don't disagree. I only think that, like I said, they can see things differently than other people, which is probably why some of them give like different reviews than normal audience members.
Well, 100%. And that was like kind of the point I was making earlier, is where like we know that we kind of tend to see like Godzilla Kong movies as just dumb fighting movies, but they were leaving reviews like bad story, bad plot, doesn't make any sense, I don't get it. And it's kind of like, that's what I'm also saying, is it's kind of like, if they were well versed in that genre, they probably would know that it was just supposed to be some dumb kaiju fighting movie that just turn your brain off and watch. And versus looking for like the nuances in the Kong gorilla fighting and how Beauty killed the beast and things, and we're not looking for that, and once again, that just circles back around to being kind of like, you just use their opinion to help formulate if it's something worthwhile. And that's why I think that they should be held to a certain standard, because you're assuming as a critic that they are well versed in it. That's it.
Yeah. So it does get in this case interesting too, because a lot of times there is obvious like times too where the viewers or the audience or moviegoers would see the critics as very snobby and very much like up their own asses kind of deal. And it makes sense, right? That's like how a lot of like the art how artsy people behave and act like, such as the fact that I don't care, I hate looking at modern art. But some people, some critics will find in this case and nuances the great things about modern art. I don't care. You're just showing me a fucking somebody sneezed at a canvas.
Yeah, like to that point, like a critic who is well versed in modern art, they can leave a profound, soul-seeking, just opinion on it. And to be quite honest, regardless, I don't like modern art, so regardless of what they're getting from it, I'm getting nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Which if anything, this is more...
straight from the like. Again, formulate your opinion based on it. But honestly, I feel like at the end though, like, that raises a different question, because of the ambiguity of modern art. Like, I feel, not to get too far on the tangent, I just feel like now it's becoming a little bit more difficult to compare movie critics with modern art critics, or modern art to movies, in that kind of space of opinions, in a weird way. Because I don't know. It is. I don't want to open up like a huge thing. Not right now. Not so close.
Yeah, not so close, but it is understandable. But I think like the better way to really look at this right now too, as like somebody that in this case wants to view movie critics as a very good way to provide a litmus test to knowing if the movie is good or bad. Literally, just try to listen not from that person, but listen to how every other person like says about it, within reasons for sure, because there will definitely be people that just straight up hate the movie genre for reasons.
Yeah, I would say that, like, as of right now, just because of what it seems like, just the weird disconnect, like movie critics just leaving reviews for whatever thing they decide to watch that day, regardless of whether they've ever seen that genre or not. I really do feel like you should be probably looking at audience reviews more than critic reviews right now. Until like there's some unless you follow particular critics. I don't know if people do that. I'm sure they do. But if you follow particular critics and you're listening to their opinions, if beyond that fact, you probably should just be listening to the audience opinions, because if the audience loves it, you as probably a casual watcher, a normal watcher, will also enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there are like critics that people do follow, because fuck, Anthony Bourdain was a renowned food critic and everybody loved him. Rest in peace, the legend. But yeah, there's always going to be like other people in, let's say, the movie space that will, in this case, there will be like actual good movie critics that no matter what movie comes out to, it's not like, I think the scoring system, how they rate movies, is a terrible metric as well. I think in this case, people should not be looking at the numbers, but in this case, reading the context of what people have said about the movie versus just looking at the score in the end. However, the score in the end is just like a very quick cursory glance of like, is movie good or bad? 5, 10, 25, I don't care. Numbers would mean absolute jack shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I get why it's helpful. I just don't think it's actually like good for the way how, like, to the point we're talking about it in this way too. I don't think scoring actually does movies well, especially when you have cases where movie seems like it would do bad, but the audience love it, or in this case, when people said the movie's going to do good, but the audience hates it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to really like kind of keep, in this case, the old numbering system or the number rating system that they're going with. It makes sense and it makes marketing like movies easier, but if you really think about it, the way how a lot of social media platforms and a lot of things have been like made available to everybody, I think trying to put stuff in a metric scoring system is going to be like really hard for, at least for me, to actually see if the movie is good or not. I will end up watching shit movies anyway, so.
I just had a thought, and y'all can give me y'all's opinion on this. Do you think movie critics are being paid off?
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, no fucking doubt. It's fucking Hollywood. Fucking movie industry.
Like,
Because I thought
let's
about
just
it, and I
say,
was like, a lot of movie trailers tend to love to slap movie critic reviews on like their trailers and things, and I'm starting to think that those are probably fake.
oh yeah, most definitely.
Like they're real reviews, but they're like bribed reviews.
Yeah, if you think about it, Hollywood's position.
Like a lot of YouTube reviews.
Yeah. Like, think of like all the tech reviews. Like a lot of times that they are sponsored, for example. And if anything, even though they say that I'm being sponsored, but you want the review saying that they say that I have liberty to say whatever the fuck I want. 9 times out of 10, they won't get that privilege.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just read from like a custom script or something like that.
Yeah. So, regardless of how that is, but yes, I do believe that in some cases, if Hollywood knows that there is a renowned critic that everybody loves and they will follow that person, they will essentially ask that critic, how much money do you want so that you can say good shit about our films?
Mm-hmm.
Because
or
at that point,
like
it's some good marketing.
to say good things about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll pay you to say good things about our films, and in doing so, it's also a great marketing tactic in Hollywood's point of view, which, it definitely does make sense.
Yeah.
But obviously, too, the moment that a critic, unfortunately, it's one of those things, too, that, like, they have to be okay with the fact that, one, you have to stick with your morals, even if anything, you know that you have to make a living. And it's like, it's dumb anyways to say like no to money, but I don't know. Maybe they should have like a clause too that they need to have full creative freedom to say whatever the fuck they want.
If you value your integrity, it can be pertinent to say no to money.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But obviously, we already know too that like for these movie critics, they need to make money somewhere. So if anything, it's not like at the end of the day, it's only an opinion, no matter what. So, based on that, what you will, even if you were told that this person has been paid off and whatnot, okay, so it's an opinion that's based off of monetary reasons. Good to know. And then you start like developing your own conclusions about like, okay, so if the movie itself is paying this critic off, does that mean the movie is good or bad? I still don't know yet. Let's ask another person that hasn't been bought out just yet. And if they say that it's bad, okay, then maybe it's actually kind of bad. And if it's still good, we'll see. And then they probably go watch it and see for themselves in the end. So realistically, it's also like I don't want to also say too that like in order to solve this issue is like just go to the film and movies yourself and then form your own opinions then because what it would be that or what would that really solve? Because if anything, are you really gonna post your own opinions online? Let's be honest. Fuck no, I'm not. But I will do it for this podcast though.
I just think that like if you know who the director is and you kind of follow certain things, if that's what you're staying up to date to do versus listening to critics,
Mhm.
I feel like you can pretty much guess if a movie is going to be good or not. You know.
Yeah, yeah, but we'll right now, I do think that there is already like a big question that's being asked by a lot of people about like who the fuck do we follow then if we're trying to get movie critics? But because let's be honest, nowadays, dude, not everybody can go see the movie that they would like to see anymore. Just because, let's be honest, movie theater tickets are fucking expensive.
Yeah.
True.
Depends on the day.
Yes, depends on the day, but regardless, for a lot of people too, when they want to go watch it too, the pricing can be bad, especially during the evenings, because that's the only time where people can watch movies.
Well, shame.
Yeah, shame. Anyways, but it makes sense why, in this case, movie critics is still such an important field that needs to be maintained in some way or form. But obviously, there is the big question of like, there's obviously going to need to be like some way of like, how do they not necessarily reintegrate themselves, but then again, it's like, how do they go back to the days where their opinions and whatever they say actually did matter? And it's obviously the answer is that like, just say it. And if
That
anything,
new slogan?
yeah, just say it.
Just say it.
I was like, within reasons. Like in this case, just say it, but in this case, own up to what you know and don't know about the films, or at least the type of genre that you're reviewing. Just because, like, it feels like it's more credible if you take ownership of you don't know much about the movie, but here's my take about it.
I think what all critics should have is next to their name of who they are, their speciality.
Ah man, giving them more labels in a world where labels are fucking annoying.
They love labels. Let's slap them what they're good at. All right.
All right, fine.
If I'm watching an action movie and they say that they're great at romance and they're leaving a review on it, I ain't taking it seriously.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, for all those movie critics, there's more things that you want to be more inclusive about. Start putting labels on yourself. God, I fucking hate that. That's the solution.
It doesn't have to be the solution.
God,
Well,
Yeah.
I know if
I don't
anything,
trust
that's
it.
Michael's hotter trash take. Then I guess fucking put labels on
That's a
yourself.
hotter trash take. And then if it's a trash take, we'll throw it into the garbage bin. No, but like realistically, I just mean that it holds a level of just like you know what the critic is good at. Like I don't know. I is that such a bad thing to be like to attach like oh I'm a critic of romance? Like is that a bad thing to see? And like, I mean, and I guess you could make an argument that they can just slap that and not be true. But
Yeah.
like, it's a start. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not really
The
good
thing
ones.
the thing I see it is if like you notice a critic is changing his speciality every single time he's watching a movie to that particular genre, then yeah, they're always a fraud. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
if they
Yeah,
if
just
they
call
if they
it.
if they say romance and they are lying to you, and then when they start leaving real romantic, like they don't ever do romance, they're probably lying to you. Or if they leave really bad reviews on romance, they're probably not a real good critic. I don't know what to tell you. I just think that clearly it needs some kind of accountability. That thing that people avoid.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, I think we should just start gatekeeping specific medias again.
Gatekeeping. Who's using terms like that?
I am.
I don't know.
Just use
You know,
jack of all trades, and then I'll know I shouldn't listen to you. It's fine.
Shit. That just means you're just like me. Your opinion doesn't matter shit.
I don't know. It's just my take of it, and it's just my opinion. So leave in the comments below if it's a hot or trash take.
God damn it.
Real hot,
yeah.
real trash.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to know.
Hot trash. Absolute
Well,
garbage.
yeah. We are right now on stream. We are approaching that hour 30-minute marks. Before we send you off as like a farewell to this, let's all do a fun thing. What movies would you recommend our viewers to watch? I'll start with Loy.
Dude, since I came out with this idea and I pitched the idea, I'll start for sure. Thank you. So, it goes back to the Asian, the Asian films.
Yeah.
Everything is just like Parasite. That it's from Korea and Train Busan, and it's called I Saw the Devil. If you're into
Oh fuck.
if you're into psychological revenge thrillers, then
Mhm.
this is like a fucking movie for you. Like they take it to the next level. Like the fucking cinematography and the storytelling in this, A1. A1. They don't need to like show like I'll give you an example. Let's pretend this is a hypothetical situation, right? You have a serial killer who is already like they show his like first few kills and how brutal they are, and they show that they set the the catalyst for that, right? They go further in and they just shows how fucked up this guy is, and they don't even show that he killed like another set of people. You just see the aftermath because it's already been set like at the beginning. It's like this guy's fucked up and you know what he's capable of doing. But then they don't have to tell that. They don't have to show that or tell that again. They just show dead bodies. It's like a fucking, it's a fucking massacre. Like blood on the floor, the knife, him carrying out like a head or something. That just, gives you a visceral feeling. This guy's fucked up. And that's pretty much what I Saw the Devil was about. It's really fucked up, and you can get through the grotesque imagery that they show, then I think it's a very fucking great movie. Like it's on. I can't say it's like on par with like Parasite, but as a movie, like just an average moviegoer, like this is one of the best films I've ever seen. Besides like White Chicks and shit, and that's just my stupid little opinion. But like overall, I think this is like a more mature content, like mature movie that you need to like understand. Like it's a really fucking movie for you to watch, and it's a hard pill to swallow. Well, yeah, that's my recommendation. If you watch it and you can't finish it, then I completely understand. But if you do, we can talk about it in fanboy. It's good. But yes, go watch that. I Saw the
Yeah.
Devil.
Well, in that case, up next is you, Michael. What is your movie that you would recommend?
I think in these trying times, everyone should be well acquainted with what the true cost of war is. All Quiet on the Western Front is a pretty good one. I know that they had a more modern remake of it on Netflix. I watched it, and I do think it's pretty good. I think it obviously will skip a couple of things that the original really touched on. I also think the story behind All Quiet on the Western Front is a very good one. But I think it's probably a true horror film. And uh like non it's a true horror film of humanity, and I think it's a good one to check out. I no spoilers obviously, but I think if you're not afraid of true grittiness and like non-glorification of conflict and war, then you will like this film.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely keep that in mind for that as well. Uh, Victor, do you have something that you would like to recommend for people to watch?
Bro, just watch whatever, bro. They're all the same to me.
God damn it.
Man, this more just
Come on, man.
Honestly, I don't watch movies. I legitimately don't watch movies. Whatever Brian tells me is good, I watch. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't watch movies on my own.
Okay. Well, if anything, this one will be a bit different because this is more or less for my own opinion about like most of the films that I like watching are more animated stuff too, because of the fact that it combines one of the few things I love about it, which is that this is good storytelling. If the story or the plot is good, and then back it up with like unique animation styles. In this case, I recommend people to go watch Kubo and the Two Strings. If in anything, for anyone that's a fan of, in this case, the Japanese versions of a hero's journey, watch Kubo and the Two Strings. It is a fantastic, like, visual based on like the type of animation it is, where it's mostly a stop motion film. And I love the story for this one, so I recommend it. Kubo and the Two Strings. I wish I watched it in theaters. That's how, in this case, how much I would recommend this movie. Is I wish I should have watched this in theaters. But that's all I got for you. Yeah. What?
my movie wasn't even in America. Plus, it has some really grotesque scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, to be fair though, a lot of like Korean films, when it comes to thriller or like crime thrillers, they're really putting the emphasis on the crime part of the thriller.
Oh, bro, for real.
But I think if anything, yeah, those would be like the hotter trash of, in this case, movie reviews that, or at least a lot of movies that we recommend our viewers to go watch. Just so that one, there is a lot of good films and a lot of good stories to be read from. And if anything, Victor, we'll probably do something about like which is like the better like shows to watch. Maybe we'll see though. Well, we'll probably rate in this case the shittier shows to watch, such as the Halo TV show. Once again, God, fucking
sure, we can do those kind of things.
God, fucking Michael start gagging in his mouth.
Don't mention Halo. I couldn't even finish the first season.
God, but yes, all hail the Master Cheeks.
Yeah.
Hey,
All hail the Master's Cheeks.
117 Bakery.
God damn. But anyways, thank you for tuning in for this chaotic podcast episode. So, if anything, we'll catch y'all next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.